producer of this show and the man that usually brings you the sports updates, Ruben Pima, knows a thing or two about old music. Now, I thought that the only music that Ruben knew was music from the 70s. But guess what? He just shocked me this morning by playing some of my all-time favorites from the early 90s, late 90s. So welcome to Good Morning Uganda, and let's throw back to the good times. I'm throwing back to the times when I would sing at the top of my voice as if I made the songs. I don't even know the menace I was creating back in the day for whoever cared to listen to my singing, but I was having such a good time. And amidst all that, among the songs that Ruben played was Mark Anthony's You Sang to Me. That song brings so many beautiful memories to me. But Chirama Robert here was giving us some dance strokes, though he was dancing to the next song, not the song that was playing. Good morning, Chirama.
Good morning to you.
How are you?
Wow, you look gorgeous in black. Huh?
Thank you. Thank you, Chirama. Nchikubye? Nchimaze?
Ochimaze. Sikudam.
To become
Otherwise, good morning, our viewers. Thank you so much for starting your day with us. It is Good Morning Uganda, the show that makes sure no matter how dark your night was, our duty is first to ensure that you're well informed of what is happening locally and globally, but also to brighten up your morning. You know, why not forget whatever happened? It's a brand new day. It's a Thursday. So, guys, cheer up. Now, you've just talked about those days when there were so many people who would sing songs the way they wanted.
Exactly.
You know, you get a word, you think it's that word, but you go ahead. Now, for me, it's taking me back those days when we didn't have mobile phones, but you had to write a letter.
Yes.
And we would have these conferences that gather schools together. Now you know that useless love, eh? Secondary useless. Sweet nothings. Sweet nothings.
Yeah, it's not useless.
No.
It was our launching pad.
You knew you had to have a good handwriting because you had to write a letter to someone.
And then you had to buy those beautiful
now you have, by then it was a restock. You would come there, there was that envelope and that book that was well decorated. But at the end of the day, you had to put songs. Dedications. Now you had to put those good songs that she'll listen to. And she's like, wow, this guy. This guy.
Someday.
Somewhere.
Chirabo is definitely taking us back to his high school days. And those were glorious days. I remember when we would get a newspaper pull out and try to cram the lyrics of a certain song, because we didn't have social media, we didn't have YouTube, so we had to wait for New Vision to print a paper pull out with the artist's big, nice picture alongside the lyrics of a certain song. The song that comes to mind when I remember that is My Heart Will Go On, and Shakira's breakout song, Chantal, help me here. The song that brought Shakira onto the scene.
It Hips Don't Lie?
Eh?
Hips Don't Lie.
Wherever, that one.
Yeah.
Good morning, Chantal.
Good morning, Olive. How are you today?
I am great. It's a beautiful morning. The music Ruben has played for us has launched
I just want to throw back
Yes.
to the days of such good music. When I look at some of the music some people are releasing lately, my heart kind of sinks, because back then we had good music, intentional, the lyrics was good. People were intentional with the work that they were doing, and it was not more about money. It was more about the passion and the talent that drove them to put out that music and an inspiration somewhere. Lately, the inspiration people have is money, and yes, we have things that are playing. Sorry, did I say things? Songs that are playing around that I don't know how to term in terms of music.
Well, Chantal, today's music really, and by the way, even internationally, there are so many songs that are released, and in a few months, you can't even stand them.
I saw Snoop Dogg one time, and it was Snoop Dogg, 50 Cent. It was a group of them. They were talking about the kind of rap music being released, and they're saying it follows the same, and it was all the same line all through. And they were not amused at how we are not creative Yet back then they were very creative with some of these things.
You're now reminding me of a certain Ugandan producer whose songs sound exactly the sound behind
It's all the same.
It's all
yes.
the same.
Except the latest release he has, I'll give it to him. The one by Elijah Shtaka. I'll give it to him. He did well with that one.
I don't know who you're talking about, but let's
I'm not sure to talk about him.
You
I'm not sure to talk about him. It was Daddy Andre.
Of course, it had to be him. Anyway, as we speak, one of us is pretty quiet. Jerome Paul, can you relate?
With the music that was playing?
Singsters.
Can you relate?
The baby is singsters.
Relating to the music that was being played today, I think the song I relate most to was the first song that was played in the morning,
Which song was
Lucky
that?
Dube's song.
Of course.
I think that is a song that I relate to, because at least during the days of Lucky Dube, even during his death, that was the time when we were able to know or had information about what is trending in the music world. But besides that, I love the throwback that Chirabo has put us back into, the one of writing mails. I think today the only challenge the only thing that is limiting writing mails to different, or for students to write mails, is because of social media. Today, when students go into semester, how am I forgetting
School
the word?
term.
These seminars. When they are going into seminars, what happens in most cases is they just share contacts, because they do know once they reach home for holidays, they are going to WhatsApp one another. Back then, when you know, as early as, not even before 2010, you get to realize that even early 2011, 2012, when we used to go in for seminars, during such a time, A-level, what you could do was you could get an, let's say, the school address, and you could write. And your mail would definitely go to a different school, and you could still write. But now, 10 years down the road, 15, things have really, really changed.
That's right. Things have really changed. Though I actually know that in some schools, students still write. My son is at a certain school, and he has OGs in Gayaza High School, and I've seen some of the mails they exchange. So probably a few schools are still encouraging the culture of writing. Only. But no, he showed me. I didn't snoop. He showed me. But what Sonko is saying is right. Today, many would rather send themselves emails or exchange contacts and then chat on WhatsApp during the holidays. But anyway, that's us throwing back to the good old times. Now, coming back to today, we have received rain over the last 24 hours. Unfortunately, for the people that ply the Entebbe Road route, yesterday was not a good day because floods cut off Bata and many were stranded in traffic jam for hours. That story and so much more are what we are going to share with you right now, and Robert Chirabo takes us through the first one.
Well, definitely it is the rains that I'll start with, where the rains began being reckless in the morning, leaving parts of Kampala and Wakiso flooded. The Entebbe Road particularly was affected, starting from Bata, where water blocked the road, causing many vehicles to get stuck and some to be submerged in the water. From around 3 a.m., it rained continuously for about 3 hours, leaving a severe flooding in most parts of Kampala and Wakiso. In Namasuba, on Entebbe Road, near Bata, water blocked the road. In an attempt to navigate through the flooded road, many vehicles sank and the residents were left stranded. Many houses flooded and valuable property worth millions destroyed by the water. Public opinions, according to the residents, they say that since they started living in the area, they have never seen water reach such levels, and it has caused them great distress. The residents blame the problem on newly constructed Nyanama Road, which they believe may have blocked some drainage channels, causing the water to have no outlets. Local leaders in Namasuba called on government to take action regarding Entebbe Road, as every time it rains, the road gets flooded, cutting off access and flooding residents' homes. Some residents were seen hurriedly moving their belongings, including chairs and utensils, to protect them from the flooding water. Meanwhile, the traffic jam on Entebbe Road was severe as everyone searched for a way through.
Now, moving on, the Ministry of Internal Affairs has cautioned all individuals that involve themselves in acquisition of illegal Ugandan national identity cards. This comes after the ministry confiscating hundreds of illegal national identity cards whose owners had come to acquire passports. Uganda's Constitution of 1995 entails that for one to be considered a Ugandan, they should have been within Ugandan borders by February 1926, when borders were drawn. However, several individuals living in the country have been using illegal means to acquire Ugandan identity. Being born in Uganda does not automatically qualify one to be Ugandan. There was a call to individuals to make use of trusted government agencies and platforms, including the Constitution, for information concerning identity.
And moving on, the Uganda Communications Commission, UCC, condemns all unethical use of broadcast, print and social media platforms, warning content creators of serious legal implications if found guilty. This comes in a wake of a reaction by members of the Uganda Medical Association towards a video by a local artist which they said tarnishes the image of medical professions. Early this week, a music video released by a renowned local musician, Grayson Wabuyi, also known as Gravito Mutuju, raised concern to Ugandan medical doctors who claim the artist's work undermines their profession. The Uganda Medical Council appeals to the Uganda Communications Commission over Gravito Mutuju video, claiming the video is not only a misrepresentation of the medical profession, but also a violation of women's dignity. Despite not receiving any official appeal from the claimants, Fred Otunu, the Director of Corporate Affairs at the Uganda Communications Commission, asserts that there are boundaries and laws to which content creator, publisher or broadcaster can be implicated. Due to high levels of capitalism, media houses today face a conflict of interest between airing and publishing popular content, which is sometimes deemed unethical and not promoting good morals. Ugandans, especially the local populace, since time immemorial have come to enjoy music whose content is meaningless or deliberately differs from the surface of meaning.
Interesting report right there. But moving on, the Mufti of Uganda, Sheikh Shaban Ramadan Mobaje, addressed a meeting at the Uganda Muslim Supreme Council headquarters in Old Kampala. This meeting was attended by district Qadis from 78 Muslim districts and 10 Muslim regions. The focus was on promoting unity and development within the Muslim community in Uganda. Sheikh Shaban Ramadan Mobaje, the Mufti of Uganda, warned against illegal acts during the pilgrimage Hijjah and announced that Uganda Muslim Supreme Council would be setting new rules to ensure proper conduct. He also condemned those who insult Muslim leaders. In his speech, Sheikh Mobaje expressed gratitude to the districts, including Mukono and Wakiso, for their contributions to the Uganda Muslim Supreme Council. He acknowledged Sheikh Erias Kasozi, the district Qadi of Wakiso, who thanked the Mufti for initiating the idea of a college for sheikhs, imams and scholars. The Mufti also condemned an attack by the former district Qadi of Masaka Muslim district and announced the swearing in of Sheikh Yassin Nsera as the new acting Qadi of Masaka Muslim district. During the meeting, district Qadis discussed various issues emphasizing the importance of unity and development in the Muslim community. Now that does it in the local news. Let's look at the international news with Chantal Olive.
Well, internationally, NATO members have pledged their support for an irreversible path to future membership for Ukraine, as well as more aid. While a formal timeline for it to join the military alliance was not agreed at a summit in Washington, the military alliance's 32 members said they had unwavering support for Ukraine's war effort. NATO has also announced further integration with Ukraine's military, and members have committed 40 billion euros or 43.3 billion US dollars in aid in the next year, including F-16 fighter jets and air defense support. The bloc's Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said, "Support to Ukraine is not charity, it is in our own security interest." The ongoing invasion of Ukraine was top of the agenda at the NATO summit, and a declaration agreed by all members said Russia remains the most significant and direct threat to security. Away from that, Elon Musk has won dismissal of a lawsuit claiming he refused to pay at least $500 million of severance to thousands of Twitter employees he fired in mass layoffs after buying the social media company now known as X. United States District Judge Trina Thompson in San Francisco, California, ruled on Tuesday that the Federal Employee Retirement Income Security Act governing benefit plans did not cover the former employees' claims, and therefore she lacked jurisdiction. The case is one of many accusing Musk of reneging on promises to former Twitter employees, including former chief executive Parag and vendors, after buying the company for $44 billion in October 2022. Musk also runs an electric car company, Tesla, and is the world's richest person according to the Forbes magazine. An outside spokeswoman for Sanford Haisler Sharp, which represents the former employees, said the law firm was disappointed and considering its legal options. Lawyers for Musk and X did not immediately respond to requests for comment. Now, in South Africa, the man who masterminded a $130 million banking scandal that caused national outrage in South Africa has been jailed for 15 years, the country's police service says. Now, Shifihwa Matodzi was the chairperson of VBS Mutual Bank, which collapsed in 2018 after being looted for years. The scam stretched from impoverished rural villages in the way to government circles and defrauded ordinary South Africans. In court on Wednesday, Matodzi pleaded guilty to 33 counts, including corruption, theft, fraud, money laundering, and racketeering. The former bank boss's combined sentence amounts to 495 years as he handed 15 years for each count. However, the court ordered that his sentences run concurrently, meaning he will serve 15 years in jail. A report released in 2018 after the central bank ordered an investigation into the scandal dubbed it the Great Bank Heist. And that leads us to the end of our international stories this morning.
The press review.
And well, now off to the press review. We started off with the New Vision, highlighting a TikToker who was jailed for 6 years. Now read about the reasons as to why he was jailed, because UCC warns against online extortion. After that, then Electoral Commission to add 5,000 polling stations for 2026. As Katanga murder case, verbatim report of police testimony against daughter. Then General Muhoozi and Chinese ambassador discussed defense projects. Pictorial of the Chinese ambassador and the CDF at the front page of the New Vision. Full list of promoted UPDF soldiers is inside today. Then Imbalu, Mswati to grace launch of ceremony. Now, Daily Monitor. Thieves in my government, give them no bail, says the Daily Monitor. Call to judges. President Museveni is called to the courts to deny bail to persons accused of corruption. He has resurrected the polarizing proposal he previously said should apply to rape, terrorism, and murder suspects. And then nephew stand in the dock over death of businessman in the Katanga case as well. The Daily Monitor gives you details. Members of Parliament on remand for corruption without bail. Those are 5 of them. You can see most of them at the front page. Then news Banks scramble for rescue over Bibanja mortgage verdict. Then how youth unable to find jobs are roasting their way to riches. The Daily Monitor gives you details. Now, electoral body chief joins polls reform choir. Then, away from that, we cross the borders to Kenya. The Daily Nation, where are they? Abductions, families searching for their loved ones are demanding that the state produce them. 5 of those who are missing following the Gen Z protests in Kenya. Now, also, Raila's handshake dilemma as Kalonzo walks away. As US elections, Biden back to vote hunt despite calls to quit the contest. Health will post interns in batches, says the health CS, as alarm as 316 Kenyans die in Gulf states in 2 years. Then there is also a new revelation, counties with the most illegal bank accounts in Kenya. Then lastly, the Citizen, how miracles are staged by crafty pastors. You can read that and more in the Citizen newspaper. Then why rents for Dar high-rises have plugged. Then minister vows to clean up rotten Nida. Then sport, done deal. Aziz Ki confirms he's staying with younger Africans. That is it from our press review this Thursday.
Thank you, Jerome Paul. We will be taking a short break and we'll leave you with Vuto from Rachel Magola. Stay tuned.
Live from UPC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning.
And when I see a woman doing it, it's okay.
Okay. We also have women in print media. You're going to find them in establishments like the New Vision and many other private media entities. We have bloggers, we have vloggers, we have women starting podcasts, women in media all across the country. We crush on you this very morning. And we say, keep giving these gentlemen a good run for their money.
For their money, right?
Yes. Please do that.
That conclusion.
Yes. Okay. Anyway, now we delve into some of the stories that have made news over the last 24 hours. And one that stood out for me yesterday was 7 Chinese nationals that were arrested for illegal sand mining in Rela along Masaka Road. Rela is a swamp, and apparently their license expired at the beginning of this year and they hadn't renewed it. They had been told to restore the wetland and they didn't do that, so they were arrested, and we'll be sharing more on that as we continue with Good Morning Uganda, since we will be having a conversation with the National Environment Management Authority later on in the show. But for now, we share the news stories that we've gathered for you over the last 24 hours.
And we will begin with President Yoweri Museveni, who met investors at the ongoing retreat in Chankwanzi. Now, President Yoweri Museveni met and held discussions with a delegation from the Hawaii Telecommunications Uganda at the National Leadership Institute in Chankwanzi. During the meeting, the Hawaii team announced plans to establish digital village prototype in Uganda. President of Hawaii Sub-Saharan Africa region, Hova Goa, informed the president that the project will demonstrate the transformative power of digital infrastructure in rural communities. Goa highlighted the benefits of a smart village initiative, which includes smart classrooms, learning centers, remote diagnosis, and smart PVS solar at no cost to the Ugandan government. He pointed out that the initiative aligns with Uganda's national strategy for rural development. President Museveni expressed support for the project. Samo Muchala Fausaya, Public Relations Manager of Hawaii Technologies Uganda, informed the president that Butaleja district has been identified for the pilot study of the smart village. She emphasized the project's potential to contribute to the parish development model, PDM, by promoting digital transformation and sustainable growth through ICT. She also noted that the initiative will establish a remote diagnosis system to connect village health centers with national and regional hospitals.
Now moving on, the zoo at Entebbe which became Uganda Wildlife Education Center in 1994, looks after 312 animals categorized in 74 species. However, the center has a 24-hour surveillance system to protect the animals, especially rhinos, which are highly sought for their horn. Members of the committee, that is the COSASE committee, were however disappointed to hear that the Uganda Wildlife Education Center only has 2 rhinos which have not produced. The executive director, Uganda Wildlife Education Center, Dr. James Musinguzi, said they are working out a project to introduce competition among them. The chairman of the committee asked the executive director whether they considered applying artificial insemination. Officials were also questioned on why they took many years to think about having a sophisticated laboratory to carry out multiplication of animals. Uganda Wildlife Education Center also developed a lion recovery strategy to help in multiplication of the lions, whose number is dwindling from national park day by day because of human-wildlife conflict. The head of lion recovery in Uganda Wildlife Education Center estimates that Chidepo is left with between 15 to 10 lions. Bukimbiri County Member of Parliament, Eddie Kwizera, a member of the committee, was concerned about why these continue to appear before the committee as Uganda Wildlife Education Center, and yet Parliament in the rationalization bills merged it under Uganda Wildlife Authority.
And moving on, 3 legislators, including
Live from UPC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, it's Good Morning Uganda. Thank you for joining us. It's 8 minutes past 7 o'clock. Today is Thursday, and we do what we do every single morning from Monday to Friday, 6:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. Monday to Friday. And we thank you for joining us, being a part of this show every single day. We do not take that for granted. And if you're joining us for the very first time, we welcome you, because this is exactly where you need to be, where we have topical discussions that will leave you thinking deeper about certain things. And among those is the fact that the Labour Ministry and CSOs demand strict laws against foreign investors on human rights. What do they mean? The government has been called out on its failure or reluctance to act on the violation of the rights of Ugandans, environmental degradation and poor competition practices by foreign investors, especially in the extractives industry. Extractive industry means mining industry in layman's language. So there have been allegations, especially where mining is taking place, a case in point in the areas where oil is being mined in Uganda. And some people say that they are not looked upon with favor, the locals, that is, they're not being looked upon with favor from the government as it is with foreigners. Now, this is the conversation we are going to be having today. My name is Olive Monica Najoma, together with Robert Chirabo Nyonyintono and Chantal Oliver Kandinda, plus Joram Paul Sonko. Now, coming to you, Chantal, first of all, these allegations. is there some truth to them? Are the people, the locals in the mining, in the extractive areas, are they onto something, or these are just mere allegations?
Well, if the ministry has come out to say something about it, inclusive of also the CSOs, then definitely there is some meat to that very bone. And much as emphasis is being put on a particular industry, you'll agree with me that this has been a prevailing situation in a number of industries. Even if you go downtown and get the shops that are owned by certain non-Ugandans or non-nationals, they'll be telling you we are paid less, we are overworked, and we don't even get public holidays. And there'll be a lot of concerns that will be brought out by these individuals that work for some of these investments. So definitely, yes, not just in one industry, but a number of industries, the human rights of our people need to be looked into.
Okay. So when we say our people, let's also actually now even go away from the extractive industry and have a general picture of all this, especially in the way that Chantal has put it. When we go to even business, let's look at a place like Chikubo. And in Chikubo, the businesses that were largely occupied by Ugandan locals, local business people, are now businesses that are shared with foreigners like the Chinese. And when you talk to them, some of them claim that the other ones are given tax holidays, whereas local traders are not given the same. And they say that they need the government to give them the same favors that are extended to foreigners. What would you have to say about that?
This is a complicated issue because some of these foreigners are being so smart to the extent they're out-competing our law. But a brief, you asked if these claims are right. Now, yes. I was reading through this report, and one, Constance Okello, the chairperson of Osukuru United Women's Network, based in Tororo, said, this is what she said: since the mining activities at the phosphate project commenced, they have been fighting with investors over the negative effects of the activities, but in vain. These include dust, vibration, accidents, but also direct action on individuals, like denial of fatherhood of the children that the foreign workers have with their local women. Now, that is also very disturbing. These investors come, they enjoy these women, then they get pregnant.
He didn't just say enjoy.
And at the end of the day, they don't want to take responsibility. But also this vibration, these machines, this is not scientifically proven. But one time I was doing a story in one of these areas, and the women said when they conceive, they get miscarriages because of this vibration, this continuous heat. The men there said the sound and all this also denies them some of their rights. But the dust in these areas is also massive. So indeed they are. Now, coming back to the situation you've brought in, we have people that come as investors in this country. Then after some time, do you know what they do? They acquire citizenship of Uganda. Now, when you go to nab them, they don't have melanin as much as I have, that pigment in their skin. But someone will tell you and even produce papers, I'm a Ugandan. Because our laws, there is a provision, if you meet certain criteria, that you can become a Ugandan even if you came in as a foreigner. So some have become very crafty, that when you take enforcement, he will tell you, I'm an Indian, but in Uganda. I'm a Ugandan, and totally, now you're beaten there.
But are the documents they are even showing true? Because if we are to go by some of the news stories we shared this morning, the Minister of Internal Affairs says that there are many people that have fake documents purporting to be Ugandans. Now,
I don't know if all have fake, but there is a loophole in our law that can easily allow a foreigner to become a citizen of Uganda, and it may not have to forge papers, but you get there. Then second, we have weakness in enforcement, because someone, when they come as an investor, they're not supposed to have retail shops, but you find these are the very people producing a particular type of shoe.
Yes.
They came in, they were given all the incentives given to investors, tax holidays, land in our industrial parks, tax and all that. Now, they are manufacturing in the factory.
And now they have a retail shop.
But also they're having a retail shop. Yet it should be, let them manufacture. We have no problem because we will not have the ability to do that. But let's get from them. Recently I saw traders where they were talking about trading clothes. They're saying, but some of the clothes you're saying you're manufacturing jeans here. Fine, that has a challenge. But what do you make of a person manufacturing? I come, I buy from him to go and sell to Ugandans. I've said I'm not going to go to China, I'm not going to go for importation. But he comes because he's the very manufacturer. What I'm going to sell 15 is going to sell 10,000 at his retail shop. So we have gaps in enforcement of the law. I think we are so much interested in bringing in investors, but would not follow up that as we are bringing in these investors, aren't we killing the local ones? Yesterday, the spokesperson of Ministry of Internal Affairs and Immigration, there's something he said, and I think it's trending. It is very funny. He even said, why would we have a foreigner do some very funny jobs that maybe these should be done by Ugandans? However, morally they are wrong. So we need to tighten up enforcement that when an investor lands in this country and says he's an investor,
yes,
we don't see him later opening up a salon. When an investor lands in this country and says, I've begun a factory doing this and this,
they don't open a retail shop.
They don't have to open a retail shop. Otherwise, it beats the understanding that we are telling our people, don't import, support the local industries.
Buy Uganda, build
Yet
Uganda.
they are killing the Ugandans in this business. There's what we should leave for Ugandans and what we should, but also there's another problem.
Okay.
Some people are being seen as investors, yet they are refugees. Now,
but because they have a different skin
because
color.
they have a different skin color, you say, look at these investors. This person is a refugee, and our refugee policy allows a refugee to work.
But they must have a license to do that.
Now, for the ordinary Ugandan who is complaining, how are they going to know?
That's right. So I would like to loop Jerome Paul Sonko into this conversation, especially being the business reporter that he is. I would like to pick his mind on this. But before that, I would like to clarify on something. You did mention that women, in certain reports that you have carried out in the past, have claimed that vibrations have made them lose their babies. And I would like for you to know that it is actually true. There are findings which show, findings from the epidemiological studies suggest that occupational exposure to whole body vibration may increase the risk of miscarriage and contribute to a reduction in fertility rates in both men and women.
So it is true.
Yes. It is true, and this is what the civil society organizations, these are some of the issues they are looking at, because how are these foreign investors, how are they protecting the people that they work with? That is something I will bring back, but for now, I'd like to loop Jerome Paul Sonko into the conversation. And Jerome, regarding the some of the views Robert has shared with us pertaining to the foreign investors, though he says some of them might be refugees, are running businesses, sometimes even illegally. But where he says that they are running manufacturing companies and also run retail shops downtown and in other parts of the country. These are seemingly big loopholes. What do you think are the mechanisms the government can use to close these gaps and ensure that the investors remain in their lane and that the local business people are also in their lane?
Well, let me first of all look at the extractive industry itself that we are discussing. This is a lucrative business, and whether someone is a refugee or not, it is a business that you cannot venture in if you do not have enough money. And at times, most of these investors that invest in such businesses are even backed by, you know, the states they're coming from, or at least they have a financial backing in that regard. That's why conversations are always where the representatives of these businesses are at times followed by, you know, representatives of these particular nations when they are to meet the president or the minister in charge of investments. Now, I have also been looking at some of the laws that protect, or some of the labor laws that are in place to protect workers in Uganda. And there are quite many. There are quite, not so many, but there are quite a number. You look at the Labor Act of 2004. This is regulating employment relationships and then working conditions and worker rights. Now we are also going to get into how they are violated. But then we have the Minimum Wage Act of 2019, which is setting minimum wage rates for various industries. That is still under debate. Now, there is the Workers' Compensation Act 2000, which is providing compensation for work-related injuries and illnesses. Now, on top of that, we also have the Employment and Recruitment of Ugandan Migrant Workers Regulations 2019. That is way different from this. And then we have the Employment Act 2006, and then we have the Trade Unions Act 2006. Now, when you look at some of these, let's look into those that are being violated by quite a number of foreign investors. There is the Trade Unions Act 2006. Now, this one regulates the formation and operation of trade unions. Now, when you do realize one of the things that is affecting many of our labor groups in Uganda, or many of the laborers, is the fact that they cannot form trade unions where workers' representatives or issues can be aired. And this gives the investors a huge advantage over the workers. And you get to realize that even different cooperatives in Uganda that are coming up, and even NOTU has been pushing to ensure that companies start favoring or start creating room for workers to create labor unions. And also, when it comes to the Employment Act 2006, which governs employment contracts, terminations, and unfair labor practices. Now, when it comes to termination, it brings me to the violation of the human rights that we are even talking about in most of these foreign entities. You do realize that in the entities, as much as we have different violations, you do realize that even terminating one's contract at times the violation of an employee's right at times.
It also begs for the question, do most of the workers in these companies or factories, do they even have the said contracts?
Most of them are actually having verbal contracts. And the unfortunate bit about verbal contracts is that once your employer is no longer happy with you, or they want to replace you immediately, you really have no say about anything. Whether you've been performing well or not, it was a verbal contract. You were hired, and someone can easily say tomorrow, Sonko, you cannot return to work.
How about accidents? What happens, because they are with the kind of businesses these are, let's say in manufacturing still, some of them are running heavy machinery and they are prone to different types of accidents. Are they protected? I've seen some reports sometimes where workers claim, I lost a foot, I lost a hand, and I was never compensated or even treated. Are we making sure, or is the government making sure that workers in these factories, especially factories belonging to foreigners, are protected, their health and even in other ways?
Well, some of the companies compensate. Some stories, we've heard of some stories where some companies compensate. I, for one, had a relative working with, I'll mention the company, Uganda Clays, and he happened to lose his hand. And they had to help him out. And he's currently on, on a salary whereby, he's not working practically because he was working in the machines, but at least they supported him to find a retirement home, and at least he gets some monthly allowances. Now, those are not so many cases.
Okay.
Because most of the scenarios of compensation are very difficult. One, it goes back to how long you've worked with this company.
Even
and of course,
if
it is quite unfair. And you were saying?
Even if you've lost a limb, they still look at the time you've spent at the company.
Now, it is highly going back to the company. Because at times, many people have had issues with companies whereby someone loses a leg, you lose a hand, and at times the company does not compensate you. But of course, you do realize at times the laws that we have in place make it very difficult for our laborers or for Ugandans to defend themselves. Because remember, you're heading in court and you're trying to win a case against someone who is more wealthier than you. And this is where the policies really need to be redesigned to at least favor the local Ugandan.
All right, Shirabo has something to say about that.
Well, first I wanted to look at why do we have these in the first place. Sonko has done us very much justice by giving us the laws that are in place. But one thing we must understand, first, most of the people working in these factories are casual laborers.
That's right.
Now, getting a job in Uganda for a casual laborer, if a person who went to school and qualified in something, getting a job is very hard. Now, what about a casual laborer? Now, they see this as an opportunity, as a miracle. They don't even know what the law says. Because when you talk about all these laws, are they sensitized about them? That if you have an accident, maybe you've lost an arm, there are steps you should first take. It's like you have an insurance and you knock someone. Yes, you have, it caters for that pedestrian. But if you don't report the accident to police, if you don't follow that due diligence, you miss out on the compensation, not so? So these are casual laborers who are illiterate, don't have this information. Getting a job is a miracle. He talked about the minimum wage when it came to Parliament. Parliament passed by the Minister of Gender, wrote to the President advising him not to assent to that bill because they were saying with the high levels of unemployment, this will either deter investors or something like that.
Even the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Finance, Ramadan Gobi, said we are not at a level where we can have a minimum wage.
So these are people who are paid peanuts. Now, they don't know their rights. And above all, they are not unionized. They don't belong to any labor union.
Yes.
Because investors are aware that now, when you have a union, these workers are going to have seminars. The unions are going to have seminars, organized seminars, but empowering them with information.
That's right.
Now, information is power. They're going to be empowered. They'll stand up for their rights. They'll begin demanding overtime. They'll begin demanding insurance,
yes.
NSSF. They know all their entitlements.
So do they, in a way, come
it is
in
deliberate.
And try, so they deliberetely stop them from having unions?
Yes, they deliberate stop them. Yet they have what? Yet unions you benefit because there is what they call an agreement that involves bargaining. What do you have for me? What do I have for you? So unless we empower these workers to know their rights, but thinking that we are going to have laws, good laws in place, when they're ignorant, they're still going to be exploited.
So we need to start with sensitization.
What about the element of regulation when it comes to these foreign investments? As much as we're saying let's put our emphasis on these workers, take a look at these foreign investments. Are they supervised? Who checks whether their employees are actually given the right, they're called PEPs to use?
Personal protective equipment.
Yes.
Yes.
PPEs, thank you. Now, who is regulating this? Who is checking to see that if I've got an accident during the line of duty, where do I go to report? Has government put in place places or people, offices where such complaints can be handled? The truth is, when you go to look at how some of these companies are structured, they're hustling, if I may put it like that, and Ugandans are being hustled. How? Someone is going to say, I'm not going to give you a contract because you're part-time. You're not a full-time employee. You're a casual laborer.
So they use technicalities.
Yes. So because the truth is, some of these people that go to work are poor. They're looking for the daily bread. So you're not even going to stop this person, but when calamity hits, this person bare minimum needs to know where to go to get a bit of help. Otherwise, if these foreign investors find a gap, and the gap is also with with the leadership as well, then we are going to keep having these challenges. Much as we want to empower these employees or these individuals that work there, there has to be somewhere these people have to be accountable to, and they know that they cannot play around with the lives of Ugandans.
I think for me, that why my interest was more with empowerment. If you look at the history of trade unions or workers' unions, these were workers like the ones we are talking about today. But because they had information and formed unions, they were able to demand for their rights. That is why some of the people in these sectors fear trade unions. Do you know why? Because they know you're going to empower these people. And once they're empowered with information, because when you look at Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, you look at the labor officers, how many do we have? In some districts,
How many cases have we won under trade
in some
unions?
districts, we don't have enough labor
Workers' unions.
officers. Even where they are first funding
So-
does not enable them.
Robert, I hear what you're saying. There is need to have trade
Yet these
unions
investors
for the workers.
are aiming at profit maximization.
I get that,
How
but I
many
think you and
cases have
Chantal
we
are
won?
actually onto something, both of you. There is need for trade unions because then the workers will be empowered and they will know what to do, how to act, where to go in case of anything. And then what Chantal is saying is that there also have to be checks and balances when it comes to the investors, to the people that are running these big companies. There has to be someone who keeps them in check. And policies, I think, Chantal, what you're now saying is that there has to be policies that protect the empowered workers. Am I right?
Yes, and also my question to Chiraba was, how many cases have been won under these unions? If I took my case to the union, how do I have the guarantee that this union is going to fight for me tooth and nail to ensure that justice is served? How many cases and successful cases do we have that have been won by these trade unions? Please do note that some of these foreign investments have backing by some of the big people in some of these governments. So are you going to now find this trade union fighting who ideally is their boss?
Well, one thing, let me just chip in a bit.
It's alleged that the leaders who even go to some of these companies for fact-finding are locked out and are not given a chance to even enter and do the
What gives a
fact-finding.
foreign investor the audacity to lock out someone who is a law enforcer?
I just wanted to respond to something by Chantal.
On that issue,
Yes.
on that issue of the foreign investors, it's quite unfortunate for the Ugandan bit, but when it comes to the favor that most of the foreign investors have, it is one that at times becomes questionable or unquestionable. One is we need them. That is a fact.
That's
We
true.
greatly need these foreign investors in the country.
But there needs to be checks and balances,
Yes,
right?
obviously. Because remember, when they're employing, they employ both ends, the skilled and non-skilled labor. That is the advantage with the foreign investors, which is quite a different kind of situation with Ugandan investors, unless they know who you are. Now, when it comes to hiring you on merit, you realize that with the foreign investments, if you're not on merit, at least you have a skill, you may be a non-skilled labor. Now, like Chantal has been sharing, that we need to do some serious checkup on the foreign investors so that they do not have a lot of authority, regardless of the fact that we really need them and their investments in the country, because they add greatly to our economy.
I think the
but
problem
at the end
is
of the
not-
day, the people question is a huge concern, because we've
Exactly.
seen many foreign investments closing in Uganda, and the Ugandans are still here, which means these foreigners will one day leave the country. And then the Ugandans are going to stay. But
That's
you have to
right.
create room where Ugandans are also comfortable to work for any person who comes, whether it's a local investor setting up an investment or it's a foreign investor.
The point of note here is not that we don't need foreign investors.
No,
We
it was
do,
just a
as
clarity
country,
kind
we
of
do.
put.
Yes, but the human rights violations in some of their companies or business entities is what we are looking at today. So if you're just joining us, that's the conversation that we are having. Chirabo, you had something to say.
We talked about policies,
Yes.
and we said, yes, we have this, but we have gaps in enforcement. But you see, over time, I've learned to face the reality and find solutions within the reality. The reality is, one of our very important ministry in charge of labor, that is Ministry of Labor, Gender and Social Development, its budget is just a drop in the ocean, given what they're supposed to do. It's greatly understaffed. We've always been talking about these issues of girls in Saudi Arabia suffering. Yet we are supposed to have attaches, government attaches. that when, leave alone these helpers of the companies. But for long, this is a problem, but they don't have the money. Now, when you're a realist, you think twice and say, looking at all these factors standing, what is the solution?
What is the solution?
The solution is empowerment of these people. Because Chantal asked me how many cases of trade unions. One.
Have been one.
Recently, I was reading a report by National Union of Trade Unions or something like that. And I'm sure you're going to be having one of them maybe in the agenda this morning. Now, they were showing you that 70% of the cases registered to them by members
of
unions have been dealt with. Remember, unions do not only apply for Uganda. They have an international body which Uganda assented to in some of these regulations. So they have been able to push. But the biggest challenge we have is that many workers are not in unions, either out of ignorance or they have not pushed because these investors are aware. If a person begins the talk of unions, then they will know this one is seizing on our profits. For example, demanding for personal protective equipment. If a man is going to spend like 70 million buying equipment, if he doesn't spend that money, that he will look at as profit, not so?
That's right.
So when you have a union pushing for PPEs, it is hindering on this ignorant thinking of an investor, not knowing that when you have protected workers, they are able to do better and the rate of return is higher.
You increase the levels of production.
So government has weaknesses, let's accept. That when we rely on it, we may not see the light of day.
So we are supposed to rely on
We are
what?
supposed to empower these very people to have, to know, to push for their rights. Because when you look at the history of unions in the entire world, they were suffering like the people we are talking about. But when they are empowered and stood up, they
Chirabo, in a minute, just a minute, as we're summing up. As we're summing up, when we empower the people, we also have to check on the people we are empowering them for.
That's right.
Because if you're empowering me to go against, let's say, an army of 10,000 people, while you've not given me the tips on how to address them, or while you've not brought the other people into the discussion, when you want me to go for, let's say if I'm going for a dialogue in a war, and yet the other party has not been involved in this dialogue, then I'm going to lose.
No, gentlemen, we are going to end this conversation right here.
Regulation is in place.
Yes. And goes both ways. We have to check on the investors and...
Well, this conversation is just becoming heated, but the Labour Ministry and civil society organizations are calling upon government to create strict laws that govern foreign investors so that we rein in the human rights violations of the people that work for them. That's the conversation we've been having. You're still watching Good Morning Uganda. Stay tuned.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Nyati Motion Pictures brings you Tuko Pamoja to the town or city near you. Between July and December this year, don't miss Uganda's beautiful stories from east to west, north to south in Tuko Pamoja.
Uganda as we see it today never had a name. It had the regions that make it.
The battle for protecting the sovereign Uganda was lost in Dokolo.
Uganda, fortunately for us, is a confluence of all these races, the races of Africa.
Bunyoro would have simply created an East African community that we are looking for today.
The rulers of Bunyoro are actually Luos.
Genetically, we are even similar people.
We are one. Use that word, Pamoja.
To get a ticket, call 0778 787 660. Tuko Pamoja?
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
So we have all had the social studies in our early education primary levels, and this is the time where we studied about the early man, the Stone Age period, and probably we could be thinking that they're not real, but here at New Rock paintings are one of the oldest historical sites in East Africa. These social studies that we had actually comes into reality. You get to see these caves, the paintings that the early men used to communicate. Like you see a lot of history that you would really want to learn and explore. Well, this is Tourism Express, where we take you around Uganda. We committed our lives to taking you around Uganda, showing you the beautiful parts, the hidden gems that you need to explore and know why we are really actually called the Pearl of Africa. Now, one of the things that actually we've been debating lately about is promoting cultural tourism in Uganda. And one cultural sites that we are at right now, New Rock Paintings, is one of those unique sites that really attracts the tourists from different parts of the world to come and see the paintings, how these historical people used to communicate, how they used to demarcate their caves. So it is just interesting to explore New Rock Paintings. As we traverse through this place, you're going to see the beautiful caves, the geographical sites here. You're going to see how wonderfully, how amazingly nature really blessed the Pearl of Africa.
My name is Kokoidana Rose. I'm assistant conservator in New Rock Paintings. First of all, I want to welcome you all to New Rock Paintings, part of the museums and monuments. And New Rock Painting is a historical site, a cultural site, archaeological site, a tour site, tourism site. It is a government entity which was gazetted in 1973 and documented in 1913 by the Teso district. So it is under the Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities. New Rock Paintings is very unique because it is a house, or it's a home of the earliest or the early man paintings, what we call the hunter-gatherers. So in this rock, we're going to find rock paintings of different colors. We're going to see paintings of white and red. And these paintings are believed to be orchestrated by the hunter-gatherers, or what we call early man. So it is a Stone Age site, being specific, late Stone Age site. So it attracts so many people. It attracts tourists from all over the world, from Europe. It attracts archaeologists. It attracts schools like academic giants like universities. They come and do their research here. And then also schools come to use this as their studying or study case for those who are taking history, geography, those who are taking fine art, all come to this place to experience and then see how interesting that place is. And we are currently on a tentative list of UNESCO or the World Heritage Sites as New Rock Paintings. And we believe very soon it's going to be a UNESCO site. So it is very important both to the community, to the country, and also to the Ministry of Tourism at large.
What could be more unique? What's unique about if you're telling tourists or someone to come and visit, why should someone come and visit? What is more interesting about it?
First of all, the interesting part, one of it is it's one of the oldest paintings we have in East Africa, and it's one of the big or authentic like paintings that we have in Uganda, recognized like nationally, like. And then also we look at that these paintings have lived for so long that date back to 5,000 years. That is, we can say before the prehistory or before the writing or the documentation of history. So these paintings have been there for a long time. So it is very unique in that you just imagine what kind of the paint these people used. And yet these people just used the things, manipulated whatever was within the environment to create their paintings at the rocks.
Well, you remember that sugar factory in Namaingo district that had been stopped from operating. Well, now the minister has further agreed and accepted it to run its operation as usual. Welcome to Good Morning Uganda Business. I'm Joram Paul Sonko, and we start with that very story because the minister has now made a U-turn on the Namaingo sugar factory. The Minister of Trade, Industries and Cooperatives, that is Honorable Francis Mwevesa rather, has come out to give a green light to the CN sugar factory in Namaingo district to continue operations nearly a month after he had revoked its license. Now, one of the developments coming in from there, it was in a letter which was dated 5th July, the minister explained that his earlier communication was only stopping the erection of the sugar mill before establishing a nucleus estate. Now, also, the letter was to also encourage the investors to establish a nuclear estate to supply at least 50% of the sugarcane requirement of the sugar mill. This is all written in the letter. Now, Francis Mwevesa added that the revocation of the no objection certificate was because a verification team that visited CN Sugar on May 13th had established that the factory had planned only 300 or had only planted 300 acres. That is about 121 hectares of sugarcane, which 24% of the 500% required for establishing a nucleus estate. Now, you're supposed to have 500 hectares. Now, according to the minister, then they thought that they only had 121 hectares. Now, in the letter dated June 17th, the minister had revoked the certificate of no objection, which had been issued to CN Sugar to set up a sugar mill in Chifuyo village, that is Buyinja sub-county, over failure to establish a nucleus estate of at least 500 hectares before erecting the mill. Now, elsewhere, we turn our eyes to another business report away from the sugar business in the country because other developments coming in within the country reveal that government is encouraging the public to embrace electric motor vehicles and motorcycles in order to address matters climate change and also to curb greenhouse gas emissions. Now, the installation of an electric motor vehicles charging station in the Central Business District by the Ministry of Energy to curb green gas emissions, you get to realize Uganda is on the right track. However much the steps are still young, but one step at a time, we shall surely reach there. Now, this one-of-a-kind electric motor vehicles charging station at Amber House falls under the government's e-mobility and energy transition agenda, whose main aim is to reduce the carbon footprint. Now, earlier this year, Kampala City Council Authority partnered with the private sector to also establish a border charging center at their offices in Rubaga, with additional stations installed across the city by Zembo. Now, these charging stations are crucial investments in low-carbon energy systems, reflecting KCCA's commitments and in reducing carbon emissions and promoting green transportation solutions. Now, Ngole Allen, a worker at one of these stations, explained that there is a process of swapping the motorcycle batteries and how things are done, that many of the motorcycle owners, especially those who have electric motorcycles, need to have or need to know before they use the space. But it's a good move for Uganda as we talk electronic mobility, by the way. Not to forget that with the Kira EVs or the Kira Motors also manufacturing electric vehicles for Uganda, it is as well something to look back at and say we are definitely riding onto the right bicycle or the right bike in regards to electronic mobility as a country, and we are heading into the right generation of innovation and technology. Now, away from that, we now head to the Uganda Revenue Authority, because more developments that are coming in from the Uganda Revenue Authority have further revealed that the rising penalties, according to Uganda Revenue Authority, that the traders are encountering are due to untrained clearing agents. Now, the Uganda Revenue Authority has revealed that it now collects about 10 billion shillings in penalties due to an increase in under-declaration, which results from errors made by untrained clearing and forwarding agents. Now, you can only feel for the business people if the clearing agents are not well trained. Now, speaking during a pass out of 190 students who graduated with the East African Customs Freight Forwarding Practice Certificate in Kampala, it was revealed by Asadu Kisitu Chigozi, who's the Uganda Revenue Authority Acting Commissioner for Customs, that they now collect more than 10 billion shillings annually as penalties from traders because of under-declaration of cargo relating to poor commodity identification, quantities and other offenses under the East African Customs Management Act. And then he revealed that with such amounts of money, they need to enhance the skills and knowledge of clearing and forwarding agents as they interact with URA, as innovations have now come up every day. So they have to train their clearing and forwarding agents to ensure that they provide worthy services, and so calling in for more professionalism within the entire clearing and auditing session, clearing and filing of the returns. Well, lastly, from the world of business, we now take our focus onto the business updates, rather onto the Forex market this morning, to see how the currencies were faring on the exchange by close of business yesterday. Closing time, the US dollar was buying at 3,699.55, while selling at 3,709.55, while opening was at 3,700, while selling at 3,710.00. The Great Britain pound was buying at 4,732.60, while selling at 4,745.39. And the euro was buying at 4,002.23, while selling at 4,013.05. The Kenyan shilling was buying at 28.79, while selling at 28.87 shillings. The Tanzanian shilling was buying at 1.39, while selling at 1.39 shillings. The South African rand was buying at 203.89 shillings, while selling at 204.44 shillings. And well, that does it for business this morning. Today, Thursday. I'll be back on Monday with the latest from the world of business. Good morning, Uganda continues though. Chantal Oliver Canada is right here with the traffic updates.
Thank you for sticking around. This is time for our traffic updates, and let's see how we get to town. It rained in some parts of Kampala today, so you can expect a little bit of traffic in some areas, and we are still expecting some rains. Also, yesterday it rained, and some roads, especially in Entebbe Road, the road was cut off, and as you can see, I'm trying to check and see if you are safe to use that road. The unfortunate bit is for people who are using that road, you most probably have no alternative route. And but as I can see here on Kampala Entebbe Road, there is slow movement, but you can still move. At least the road is not closed out entirely, or it's not actually closed out, so you are safe to move if you're using the Kampala Entebbe Road. Small hold-ups in the middle there and slow movement, but you are okay to move, especially the part that has the Bata stage. On Entebbe Road, you will find just slow movement, and after that there is nothing for you to worry about except just slow movement, but traffic is clear all the way as you are trying to make your way to town. And the only other part that you will be finding traffic is after the junction that has Wamala Road. That is why you'll be finding lots of traffic. However, Namasole Road is safe in case that's the route you are taking, but after that, going ahead, you'll be finding a lot of traffic with some deep red zones, and that is how you know that you'll be in that traffic. And it goes all the way through Chibuye and takes you up to the Kampala Clock Tower. That is how you know that there is a lot of traffic. And when you get to the Kampala Clock Tower, Queensway seems safe for you to move. Mobutu Road has slow movement on both sides, but also let's lose a bit, and you're okay to move if you're using Mobutu Road. Now further onto Queensway, you will find no traffic whatsoever, and you are safe to use that road if that is the route you intend to use to make your way to your next destination. Katwe Road is mad with a lot of traffic, especially if you are exiting the roundabout joining Katwe Road. If you are joining the roundabout to Queensway, you're safe to move. If you're joining the roundabout to go to Entebbe Road, you are safe to move. Just a little bit of a hold up, but after that, you are okay. Now, onto Katwe Road, after the roundabout, it is mad with a lot of traffic, then slow movement and goes further to Luzon, and later on gets to a slow movement. But then when you get to Katwe Chibuga side, you will find a lot of traffic, and until you cross over from the junction that has Mutebi Road, that is where you'll be finding no traffic, and then you will be finding slow movement. Joining Queensway, you are safe to move, but if you are continuing on to Katwe Road, there is even constructions happening, especially that side of Usafi Market side. So if you can avoid that route, I highly recommend you do not take it. And if you are proceeding to the Kampala flyover side, you'll be finding just slow movement. But if you are using Mengo Hill Road, there is a lot of traffic in there and slow movement. And if you are someone that is trying to make your way to town, you'll be finding a bit of traffic, and it gets loose a little bit as you are connecting to the Lubiri Ring Road. And that is why you'll be finding it safe for you to make your way to your next destination. And well, that is how we are standing in some parts of town as we are trying to see how to get to work or see how to get to hustle. Juko Road has no traffic whatsoever. You are safe to take that route in case that's the one that leads you to wherever you want to go. And well, that is how we are standing in terms of traffic in certain parts, especially the parts that usually are mad with a lot of traffic. In Zambia Road is safe. You can take that route and everything is okay, just slow movement, but nothing for you to worry about. And the same goes for Mukwano Road. However, in a few minutes, it may not be the same thing as it usually happens. That's it for our traffic updates this morning. Thank you for staying with us. Good morning, Uganda Agenda will be coming up next. Stick around.
Live from UPC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Nyati Motion Pictures brings you Tuko Pamoja to the town or city near you. Between July and December this year, don't miss Uganda's beautiful stories from east to west, north to south in Tuko Pamoja.
Uganda, as we see today, never had a name. It had the regions that make it.
The battle for protecting the sovereign Uganda was lost in Dokolo.
Uganda, fortunately for us, is a confluence of all these races, the races of Africa.
Bunyoro would have simply created an East African community that we are looking for today.
The rulers of Bunyoro are actually Luos.
Genetically, we are even similar people.
We are one. Use that word Pamoja.
To get a ticket, call 0778 787 660. Tuko Pamoja?
Pick of the day on UBC.
He expected me to die like within the first 2 years.
Out of the blue, the child will get pains, especially in the wrists. And this happens commonly when children are starting to walk.
Was brought to you by
can now get all the Chibuzi out with MTN voice bundles. Call all networks. Kubei Dondoro. Buy a 25-minute voice bundle for only 1,000 or buy any daily voice bundle of your choice. Dial *100 *21# and select daily or use the My MTN app. When we talk together, we are unstoppable.
Junko. Yo. Check the shopping, man. What's the secret?
Haven't you heard of the parish development model PDM?
Yes, I did, but I thought it was just a talk.
No, Sematia. It is real. I and a few friends together formed a circle, accessed money from the PDM, invested in a poultry project, and now things are moving.
Junko. I thought I was one of your friends.
You are.
But you left me behind.
I didn't leave you in poverty. But what you do, just visit your LC2 chairperson and your parish chief and start the process of economic transformation. Just like that.
Okay.
The parish development model is an initiative from the government of Uganda through the Ministry of Local Government designed to transform all lives of Ugandans for the better. PDM, my parish, my development, my life.
Gange nze Nambogo Hadija ndi nkamula juisi naye ndudde nga mukola okuva lwe nawumula ebyokusoma nali musomesa nempomula ebyokusoma nentandika okolera juisi wanawaka nga muguza abo ababasi wansi wamanga okusooka nali nkola obudomola 4 naye kati okuva lwe bampa sente za parish modo nkola obudomola nga 8 nkola 8 obudomola 3 naye omunanasi guno ogutali mufumbe ngukuba mu blender nga ntekako entangawuzi nenkola emicungwa obudomola 4 abantu basinga banywa nnyo emicungwa nenkola n'obutunda juisi w'obutunda nteekamu emiyembe nteekamu obutunda nteekamu epapaali nteekamu karoti abantu bamwagala nnyo nabeera heavy sente za parish modo nzifuniddemu ddala kubanga luli nali ngula sukaali mu kiro kati ngulira ddala kasawo akekira 25 emitwalo 8,300 ne mukozesaako wiiki namba nentereka eza sukaali zokka nentereka amagoba gange nyinawo n'oyo omuwala omukozi buli lunaku muwe 15,000 nange nenfisaawo amagoba nembakinga okuva mu busomesa nenzira mukola juisi nali nzadde omwana wange asembayo bwe bampaamu liivu nagenda okulaba nga sikyasobola kuddayo ate nga wano wammanga wazeewo baasi nensooka nenkolaawo nga naye nga nkola bwange bwakunywa kati waliwo omwami eyayitawo wano nangamba ojja otuleeterenga ku butunda bwe nabutwalayo ne babwagala nange nentandikirawo obusomesa nembuwumula kubanga olwedde nali nkuze nga sikyasobola nakukeera sente ezo gavumenti yatugamba tugende tuziggyeyo twekulaakulanye ng'abakyala ababeera awaka. Kyekyampaliriza kubanga ssente zaali zaffe abantu abaki abawansi ate nga bazituwadde kwongera mu bizinesi. N'empalirizibwa ogenda ozijjayo naye ate eky'omukisa omulungi olw'okubanza abantu b'amabeeka yali amanyi nti nkola ndudde nga nkola juyisi, erinnya eryange lye lyasooka ku lisiti. Era saasanga buzibu bwonna bwe nagenda okusoma ng'ate balaba era mbikola n'abantu b'omu kitundu bonna balaba juyisi mumazeemu ng'emyaka 2 bampa mangu ssente kubanga erinnya eryange lwe balonkinga lwennyini lwe lyafuluma mu bajjuyizi lwe lyafuluma okufuna ssente. Era nenkyebaliza Mukama. Bangi nnyo bwe balaba nga tufunye ssente baayaayaanisa awo eyo okgenda okufuna ssente ng'ate tekikyasoboka kubanga byali byakumala kujjuza mpapula. Naye nze era bensanga mbakubiriza ne mbagamba mugende ku kitawuluzi batandise okuwandiika bagenda okufunamu ssente kubanga tutandise okuzzaayo nze sofa ndi 25,000 mu katabo kange ze nnaakazaayo ate nawulira nti ze bagenda okuwa abaki bano abalala bagenda okuddako. Naye mbakubiriza okgenda okwewandiisa era buli gwensanga nga teyafuna ssente mujjukiza nti maama Saala genda weewandiise ojja kufuna ssente kubanga ssente zaali zaki zaakuzaayo era nze mpezezza 25,000 nga njizaayo mu katabo kange.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
It's a cold morning, I must say, because in most of the parts within Kampala, at least you've received something similar to rain, or it has rained cats and dogs. No matter where you are, thank you for being with us on UBC TV. I'm Robert Chirabonyonyotono. Welcome to Good Morning Uganda Agenda. Now, this morning, we are going to be discussing a very important topic. That is child labor crisis in Uganda. Now, the International Labor Organization and other international bodies concerned on issues of labor carried out a survey and indicates that in Uganda, child labor is on an increase more so after the COVID-19 times. And this has a lot of encumbrances on productivity of these young children and also exposes them to a lot of dangers as they grow up. Now, joining me on set, I have two gentlemen from the National Organization of Trade Unions with whom we are going to be discussing this topic. I have Moses Mauku, who is the Treasurer General, Notu, with me. I love the blazer and the nice color combination. Moses, good morning and welcome.
Good morning to you, Brother Chirabo, and the rest of the Ugandans. I salute you all.
And just next to me is the Secretary General, Richard Bijirwa of Notu. You're most welcome.
Good morning, and welcome to this program.
Now, even before we dive into the topic of the day, in our newsreel, if you are watching wherever you are, we had a concern over the foreign investors in our country that sometimes tend to exploit the local, more so the casual laborers. And one of the things I noted are trade unions or unions, that in such a time, could it be a safe haven for such people? Briefly, because it's not our topic that we're going to be discussing. I'll begin with Vijira.
Thank you, Kirabo. The issue of mistreatment of the workers in the country is a key concern to the National Organization of Trade Unions as workers' leaders. This one went to the extent that in the last Labor Day celebration in Mukabura in Fort Portal, we raised this concern before the country and before the president of this country about the crisis of mistreatment of workers in this country. And the President gave directive to the Ministry of Labor to ensure that the issue of workers' mistreatment in the country is eradicated, especially the casualization of workers in the country. And in the same vein, we are also waiting. We are trying to fast track the Employment Act, which made some few amendments in regard to casualization of the workers. We have had meetings with the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development, and we have raised the concern. The Minister of Labor has written to the Speaker to ensure that this amendment is done and the Employment Act is put in place. You remember the President returned it. There were concerns we had in the Act, and therefore we are hopeful that with the coming in force of the new law, some of these issues will be eradicated. However, we are now working around with the Ministry of Gender and the Investments to ensure that the mistreatment of workers in factories, industrial parks, this process has started, and we are making sure that we do our best to halt or to stop all these kind of occurrences in different companies.
Yes, Moses, a brief one on that same issue. I want to get your voice, because at least I know for the hospitality industry, you're doing some tangible work there.
Well, at national level, I would only just want to add on what the Secretary General has just presented. It is a reality that casualization of labor is on the rise everywhere, to the extent that we have seen many companies that come here, the investors who come here, and promise the country we are going to offer 500 jobs. Out of the 500 jobs that they offer, only less than 100 are permanent employment or contract employment. The 400 or more are casual employment that are useless to even the persons that do these jobs. They do not contribute to NSSF through their income. They do not contribute to pay as you earn, because they earn less than the threshold as required by the the Income Tax Act. So such jobs are precarious jobs, and yet these people earn a lot of money arriving from what these people do in production. So it is a vice that we must fight. We are happy that the President gave a directive to the Ministry of Labor, and we have started some actions. We actually visited the Mbale Park to meet all the employers who are doing business in the Mbale Industrial Park. We are meant to go for another survey in Namamve Industrial Park, then the one of Mbalala in Mukono, and we are doing this in conjunction with the Ministry of Finance and Investment, the Ministry of Trade, and the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, together with Federation of Uganda Employers and also the trade unions. So we are starting to do certain things to ensure, in addition to what we are requiring of the law amendments to be made, we are also actively engaging with the employers to ensure that we reduce on the vice of casualization of labor in the industries.
So there is some light at the end of the tunnel. We hope this can be expedited, because indeed, like you said, Moses, in a country where we don't have a law against profit repatriation, these people come, exploit our people, and make all the money, take the profit. At the end of the day, much as we crave for them, if we do not follow up strictly, we may end up just being a country exploited in the name of creating employment and reducing on imports to promote exports. Now, going to the topic of today, Richard, when we talk about child labor, first and foremost, let's understand, why is it something that Lotu feels should be prioritized at such a time? What's the history to this?
Thank you, my friend. First of all, I would like to put it categorically that this is a situation which is running out of hand and which needs special attention. As you earlier indicated, that the Committee of Experts from International Labour Organization, in collaboration with the National Center, came here a year ago and did a survey And we found that child labor was had an increase from 14% before COVID to 22% after COVID.
That's a huge
And this reflects that 6.2 million children are in child labor.
6.2?
2 million are in child labor. Now representing out of the 39.5 children we have, that means 6.5 is in child labor, which is representing 39.5% of the children we have in the country. And this is the extent where we have reached. This situation here, especially the children between 5 and 17, are really in child labor, in areas of tea growing, in areas of plantations, in areas of stone quarry, in areas of mining and hawking around the cities. So this is a situation we are in as a country, and we must see it eradicated. You know the dangers of having a younger population which is irate in a crisis. And for us as a national organization of trade union, we want to work together with all partners to ensure this crisis is brought to the end. To the extent that this was a topic which was discussed at the ILO before the Committee of Application and Standards, before the Committee of Applications and Standards, and we assured the International Labour Organization that we are going to work together with government, the employers, to ensure that this situation is eradicated. We want now to empower government to get through the Ministry of Gender to ensure that we work closely so that our coming generation is not put to the waste.
Now, here I want to bring in Moses. Most of the times when we talk about child labor, first, to a layman's understanding, a brief definition of child labor, because what you may call you civil society, NOTU, the International Labour Organization, may be why it's hard to fight it. That someone may think, but we all did work when we were young. What is a problem of a child? A mother boils eggs and gives to the child to go and hawk. We grew up seeing children working in this quarries. The father works, crushes stones, the child is carrying them to a certain, so throw light to this.
I think, let me just make a description of what child labor refers to. Every child has his or her rights. Now, the situation of child labor relates to situations where a young person of a certain age, under the categories of persons that are young, are given work or duties that are beyond their the capacity of their age limits. I want to take an example. There are people who make children of less than 1 year work. You get a child who has not even started working. This child is hired, or this child is brought to the street to make money by a mother. And the child is placed in the middle of the street at the pavement so that the mother can collect money, or the younger sisters can collect money using the other child. So you are putting that child to work when it is actually not time for such a child to go and work. But the child is making money for the family. Such situations constitute what we call child labor. You get a small child of maybe 10 years, say for example in Karamoja, that child is given 100 cows to go and graze, and from morning up to evening. So that type of work is too much for this age of a person. And every child, when the child gets to school time, every child must be in school according to the laws of this country. But you find that many families, some of these children are actually not in school, but they are doing family work for income purpose. So any type of work that deprives a child from doing what she is meant to do at his or her level, or that type of work that deprives this child from attending school for any reason, constitutes child labor. And such situations are rampant everywhere, but they manifest most in informal sector settings, family settings. And the causes for child labor are many, various, but the biggest and most critical cause of child labor is poverty. Some people are actually forced into child labor because they have no other alternative but do it.
Well, our viewer, you can be part of the topic of discussion by simply using that number on your screen. You can send me a WhatsApp message or a text message. That is the number on your screen. Please do not call. I've seen someone trying. We don't receive calls. We shall have your WhatsApp message. We shall have your text message. And my guest in studios will be responding. Today I want to give more time to you, the viewer. So send in your messages as early as possible so that we can have solutions to this problem. Now, Richard, Moses talked about a number. He said the major cause is poverty. Now, let's also analyze these causes in depth. Reason being, child labor is hazardous. We expose our children to a lot of complicated situations, most of the girls. I don't know who told Ugandans to have a housemaid, she has to be below 18 years. But it's like a culture. Someone in an urban center tells a relative or a friend, "Funiraya kana kawala kanyambe kokumiri." You know? And when you do a random survey in homes of many people, even you watching us this morning, the age of your mate, she's underage. But you're leaving a child to take care of your children. So let's go into the causes.
Thank you. As my colleague has already highlighted, one of the key significant causes of child labor is poverty. Parents believe that that is one of the options they can raise money using younger children, especially on the streets, even in plantations, picking tea, carrying sugar cane in the plantations. All these are areas where there's rampant child labor. And the causes are clearly poverty. Two is also poor parenting. Some parents, I think we the parents, have decided to become irresponsible. We have left our children to move around, and therefore the children will find their way in where they can make a coin. So you find we are not taking care of our children at a younger stage. So irresponsible parenting is one of the causes of child labor. And whoever lands on him, he says, "Hey, you go and pick for me a jerrycan of water, I will give you 500 shillings. And he go. And the other one is definitely, especially as you said, we ourselves are not taking care of ourselves, especially in the homes. I'm very sorry. Sometimes we get scared of girls who are big to be in our homes. And the causes are very clear with our sisters, that sometimes we feel it can cause, we feel insecure.
The co-wife just next in your house.
And the same thing applies also to us men. Sometimes we don't want to see boys into our homes.
The Shamba boys.
The Shamba boys who are very active. So ourselves are causing this child labor.
So you want a young boy to
younger boys, we resort to younger girls. So this is a matter we must try ourselves to avoid. We should be secure of one another. We should feel free. Unless if you monitor there's something happening, well, deal with it. But it shouldn't be a cause of child labor. And basically here in the country, as you highlighted, we bring younger children who are underage. We bring Shamba boys who are underage. And this is a matter which we should really ensure that it is eradicated. And the other one is poor policies. We also have poor policies in the country. For example, time and again, trade unions have been advocating for social protection. There's no social protection in the country, and therefore children are not protected. be it health, be it insurance, whatever. There are no proper policies being enforced in the country. And this is a matter for us as trade union. We are pushing, including the ratification of Convention 102 on social protection. So we believe that if we have adequate policies and laws which can be enforced, it's better. Because now, even as we talk now, the labor inspection system has collapsed. The Ministry of Labor has inadequate resources. They cannot move to inspect all of these areas to ensure that there are proper methods of work in the country. And therefore, we want to appeal to the government to increase the funding to the Ministry of Gender and also the issue of labor officers. Some districts are in crisis. And we believe that this is a matter which needs close supervision. And therefore, we know we have agreed with the government that this is a matter we are going to tackle on in the next financial year. I believe that we should be able to make a milestone into this area. Otherwise, as we talk now, the inspection system has collapsed because of inadequate funding. And even in this budget, the provisions are limited, which is a very disappointing matter on our side. We believe Ministry of Gender should be given attention, especially in the labor inspection, if we are to eradicate child labor. However, we have also discussed with the International Labour Organization as a trade union, as an employer, together with employers and the ministry to give some technical support to ensure that this child labor is eradicated. This was a key subject matter when we were at the International Labour Conference in Geneva last month, and we have agreed that the ILO helps us to ensure that we get technical support to eradicate child labor in the country.
Now, here I want to bring in Moses. When you talk about child labor, you've given us the reasons or causes. But let's look at public perception. Because for you to fight or end anything, I see now in government, most of the programs, there is a pillar called mindset change.
Yes.
Now, to many people, what you refer as child labor, some it is what has made them. Someone will tell you, I used to go to the quarry and make my school fees. Someone will tell you, I used to hawk maize around. One will tell you, in a bar, I used to help mama sell waraji, and how I was able to be educated. In other communities, this is just the way of life. A young boy, when you clock 5, you're good to graze cows. So let's look at public perception, mindset change. How do we make a breakthrough? For the house girls we are talking about, it is normal. This is how things have been in generations, and maybe this is how they are going to be.
Okay. Thank you, Brother Chirav. I would wish to start on the note of standards. One of the most serious causes of child labor is ignorance. You know, like you were alluding to the fact that very many people do not appreciate, comprehend what child labor entails and what are the consequences of child labor to the human being who has been subjected to that situation. So under the circumstances where we are ignorant about the repercussions, we don't know what the real causes are and what it can cause this individual person, either in the mid-term or short-term or in the long-term. We continue to perpetuate or to allow child labor situations to prevail. And for that matter, the International Labour Organization, which is one of the UN arms, has 2 conventions. All of them are under the 8 core conventions. Out of the 190 conventions, we have 8 core labor conventions. And there are 2 conventions that speak about a child. One of the conventions is Convention 138, and that determines the minimum age at which a human being must be engaged in work for economic purposes. Then we have Convention 182. That one has been universally accepted all member states of ILO have ratified Convention 182. And that is the convention that speaks about the worst forms of child labor. In child labor, we have what they call light work and work generally. So different age groups can be allowed by standards to do certain type of work. So we have this convention, the worst forms of child labor. In Uganda, we have different pieces, actually they are even colliding, different pieces of legislation. The Employment Act speaks about a different age. The Children's Act speaks about a different age. And the National Child Policy also speaks about a different age. So we have, when they ask Uganda what is the minimum age for work, we have three different. We have 14, we have 16, we have 18 in three different pieces of laws or legal frameworks. And that was one of the questions Uganda was put to task to explain. Why are they not consistent with the requirements of the minimum age standard, that is Convention 138? And it's a duty that we have to do here to ensure that we concur with what that convention calls of us, since we have ratified as a country. That aside, those could be technical things for people who have maybe gone to school to understand. Locally, in our setting, it is said that eradication of child labor is a very complicated aspect, and it requires a multifaceted approach. Everybody has a duty to play. The parent has a duty to play. The child, him herself, has a duty to play. The local authorities in the community or society have a duty to play. The Ministry of Internal Affairs, police, has a duty to play. The government generally has a duty to play, to regulate, supervise, and implement the laws. The trade unions have a duty to play because many of these people get into the workplace at ages which are not permissible. The employer has a duty to play, so everybody almost has a duty to play in eradicating or addressing the issues of child labor. So child labor will take some bit of time for us to eradicate. What is most critical and important for us to do is to create awareness continuously, because the problem of child labor is manufactured every day. Young men and women are meeting to manufacture children who end up into child labor every day. So it is not something that you can say we are going to do it for some time. It must be as continuous as production continues to be continuous. Very many of these young people, you see, these days we have this notion of girl child, protect the girl child, protect the girl child, and leaving the boy child the other side, reckless. So they are busy manufacturing children who are fatherless, leaving it to this girl child who is also not able to fend for this same child. So under the circumstances, these are the children that are ending up into child labor because they have no parents, or the parents are also children themselves. One time we were doing a survey in Zambia. We could go on the streets to find a 9-year-old child in prosecution. 9 years. And this has come to even Uganda. If you moved around and do a survey, you will find children of 10 years in prosecution, even here. And when that girl catches pregnancy, what happens? With a man she does not even understand or know.
And she's very vulnerable too.
Exactly. They even just attempt to get into that practice, they get pregnant from there, and they end up a child having another child.
Child mothers.
Child mothers. So many of them. Even today, if you just took a sample and collected 5 or 10 women randomly, girls, you'll find out of 10 mothers, 7 are single mothers. Or sometimes even all. But the level is that serious. So these people are forced economically to to end up into child labor practices because they can't fend for themselves, like you're explaining. So they are forced into child labor because of what the SG is explaining here. We don't have a comprehensive social protection system that can cater for such vulnerable children or persons. It must be a parent to struggle with this kid. And these are parents who are also children, helpless. So what happens then? So there is a lot of effort, a lot of strategy that we need to craft to ensure that we eradicate or address the issues of child labor. Otherwise, it continues every other minute that passes by. That is what I can submit.
Well, earlier I urged you to send in your messages, and I promise that I'll be reading them out and my guests will be responding to them. Please kindly give me your name. Now, I'll begin with Apostle Junior. Good morning, UBC. I'm Apostle Junior from Kamocha. Concerning child labor, to my side, most of these children doing hard work are children living with their stepmothers because stepmothers don't like children of their co-wives, which forces some of these children to run away from home and for the girls into early marriage because they are living under great suffering. In the absence of their fathers, it's the government to come up with ways forward to help these children that lack parents either by death or their parents are divorced or Apostle Junior from Kamocha. Thank you, Apostle Junior, for being with us. Now, moving on. Oh, please, let's keep these things short. Let's keep the messages short. Child labor in Uganda is driven by several factors. He mentions poverty, lack of education, cultural practices, orphanhood, then weak legal enforcement, agricultural economy, conflicts and displacement. Nayamba Justice from Nakawa. Thank you so much for your message. Then Daniel here from OYAM, to help you fight and combat child labor at grassroots level, incorporate cultural leaders and organize them well. They'll try and we shall be able to boycott political leaders. I think it talks about maybe political influence in one way or the other. And we have another one coming in. Good morning. This is Shadrach. Thank you, Shadrach, for being part of the show. Says one of the causes is lack of access to education. Inadequate educational facilities, high cost of living, and cultural factors can prevent children from attaining school, mostly in Kakira areas in Jinja, pushing them into workforce instead of school. He comes from Jinja, and thank you so much, people of Jinja. We love you, and we really appreciate every moment being with us on UBC TV. Now, let's first address those as more are coming in. Please keep these messages very short. You can send me a WhatsApp message or a text message, and I'll read it out. And the people I have, my guests in studios, will be able to respond to them. I don't know who is taking on what.
Okay, thank you, Kirabo. First of all, I want to appreciate the ones sending messages. And one of the most efficient way of fighting child labor is definitely to join hands. We have in place the local councils, we have the churches, all the religious leaders in the country, and this is a matter we should combine effort, all of us together with trade unions. As a trade unions, we have our networks. For instance, every district, we have 2 workers councillors. That is a female and a male. And this is a structure I would like that everybody utilizes in his home districts. We know there might be a problem of logistics here and there, but at least the government has tried to put in place the framework on how workers can coordinate across the globe. So we want to appeal to all citizens that where circumstances happen, like harassment by stepmothers, like poverty and what, let's be able to use the local leaders in the area together with the trade unions in the country, the workers' councillors, different trade unions. That is a matter we shall embrace because we believe this is one of the ways we can join hands to fight child labor in the country. We have also had meetings with some cultural leaders. We had a meeting in Fort Portal with cultural leaders, and we are continuing to meet even religious leaders to ensure that we form a coalition where we can fight child labor together, because it is really rampant everywhere, and there are places we may not be able to reach. For us as workers leaders, our role is that we shall ensure that we give support to our members where it is necessary, and we shall definitely work closely with all the stakeholders. We welcome all the stakeholders to fight this vice, because otherwise we are eating the Uganda of tomorrow, we are eating it today. And therefore it is not proper for us to continue using children in our areas of operation.
Yes, Moses, regarding some of the questions, one says, to me, I think eradicate child labor, we need to revise our legal framework and incorporate also the other laws, i.e. customary and government policies too. I remain state knife. Well, that's a unique one.
I just want to appreciate the comments. Actually, they're not questions, but there have been comments and observations from the callers. I mean, those that are sending in messages, they are all correct in whatsoever they have submitted. One, like I said, by definition, child labor is a concern of every human being. And child labor can be addressed by each and every person living in Uganda, either as a parent, either in the family setting, either in the societal setting, either in the workplace where you work, where you live. You can always add value to the process of how to combat child labor. We need everybody in this process of combating child labor, because everybody matters. What is most critical for us is to share information, is to create more awareness about the dangers of child labor, about the policies, about the legal framework that exists about matters of child labor, so that we can be able to participate in the process of combating child labor, all of us, at organizational level, at family level, at government agencies. Almost each and every government agency has a concern to do with child labor, because every person in your home, there is that problem of child labor. If it is not in your own house, in your family, there is. In your clan, there is. In your culture, there is. So at all levels, we can have to do something to ensure that we try to combat the incidence of child labor in Uganda, because the repercussions affect us all the same way. These children that end up in streets, running home because of this family strife, when they go there, they get assimilated to the conditions, and they will never want to leave the streets. So they become criminals. You have been seeing what has been happening. People kicking other people on the streets. They are very young people. A person of about 18 years is bringing you down within a second. And these are boys who have been sent to the streets through the same vices of child labor. And when they go there, they perfect in doing crime. And when crime comes, it can affect anybody.
Yes.
Whether you are driving, they can cause harm on you. Even when you are walking, you can steal. So it is a problem for each and every one of us, and therefore the need for us to concern ourselves in what can I do as an individual to combat child labor. It should be the question by everybody. And then those agencies that are particularly concerned with the legal frameworks, with implementation of policies, then they take it up more vigorously to ensure that we do what? But more is creation of awareness. Because the people perpetuating child labor, the people manufacturing child labor, are not aware about these repercussions. Only they are interested in having children that they cannot fend for. And on the other side, the government, which would be looking after these children through social protection mechanisms, the mechanisms are inadequate to address this problem. So as a country, we all have a duty to ensure that we do something reasonably to eradicate child labor in our society.
Well, looking at the messages still, good morning, Patricia Narubega here. As a nation, we need to address the rise of child parents that the treasurer has hinted on. A reason this will gradually retard the cycle of children being driven into need of work to find for their families or for economic purposes. And I agree with you. I remember there was an arrest sometime that was done during the days of COVID-19. There was some hotel around Busega. So I think it's a brothel, something like that. Now, young girls were arrested. And when the media went there, most of them would tell you, I'm a mother, I don't have what to do, now it's prostitution. No, I'm looking for fees, I'm looking for, when I make this money, I send to my mother, my child gets money, but they were below 18. Most of them are below 18. And the factor driving them is she has a child that must eat, must drink, must go to school. Well, many messages are coming in. I want to thank you so much. Alex from Kabale, thank you so much. My brother Ogwang from Tororo, thank you so much. And many more. We may not be able to read out each message, but we do appreciate. Now I just want to give my guests each a minute to have your parting shot, beginning with Richard.
Thank you so much for hosting us. My message here is that we have outlined the causes of child labor. We want to continue to urge government to increase more funding on the issue of social financing, like it is doing like PDM and other programs, so that poverty can be alleviated to curb the child labor in the country. Because the primary cause is really poverty. The others are secondary. So these programs in the budgeting, in whatever of the country, should be emphasized, especially the programs which are geared towards poverty alleviation. Therefore, it will be important. And we need, as a country, to work together, as my colleague has said. Child labor is not going to be eradicated in one day, and not by only trade unions. That's why we come here to create more awareness to the country, to sensitize the country that this is a vice which is going to eat all of us if it is not capped. Lastly, I want to urge all employers on the issue we started with, the issue of casualization and outsourcing. This is a matter His Excellency has given a directive on casualization. Please, if you are out there and you are still engaged in casualization, this is a matter we are coming as trade unions, we are going to enforce together with the Ministry of Labor. We have already started and we are moving around. Please, casualization of workers is not productive to the country, and it is not helpful to the country. It is actually a useless employment. We want to urge you that please go towards the contracts, give workers contracts, please treat workers in a fair manner like all other employers across the globe they do. Please, thank you so much. We thank you for continuing to provide workers with employment, but please let us give decent employment. Thank you.
Moses, as we move out of here.
Well, for me, my closing note will be still on standards. We have one convention that can offer some solution. We have Convention 189. And the Convention 189 by ILO deals with the regulation of domestic workers. All of us are aware the conditions and terms under which domestic workers offer their labor is appalling. And there is this convention that was ratified about 80 years ago, and up to now, Uganda as a country has not ratified, so that we can localize the components of this convention into our own laws. So I want to call upon government to, among other things, as a way of fighting or combating child labor, is to actually ratify Convention 189 of the ILO. And the other thing that I want to also emphasize is for us to understand that all of us Ugandans have a duty in combating child labor, because the repercussions count on us without any discrimination. So I want to emphasize that all of us need to understand the problems of child labor and that the incidence of child labor is on the rise, and it is wrong and bad for the country Uganda, and yet all of us have something that we can do to ensure that we combat child labor in this country Uganda. I still want to finalize by calling on the workers of this country to take up arms and fight child labor together with the other stakeholders, the employers, the workers. Where you find child labor being done, best is to report to the authorities, because at least we have the laws to begin with. If these laws are enforced, the incidents continue to reduce. But if the enforcement of these laws is not properly done, the incidence continues to rise. And two, lastly, is to also urge government to to appropriate more money into strategies that can deal with the issue of poverty, so that the people can now be able to fend for themselves, and or creating mechanisms of social protection that can help the helpless. Instead of going into child labor practices, they can do economic activities to earn a living, so that the children can be saved of child labor. I submit.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Moses Mauku and Richard Bijira from the National Organization of Trade Unions. Child labor is something that we must all fight, because at the end of the day, it reduces the productivity and the abilities of these young children, exposes them to so many dangers. You don't know how many girls have been raped in the disguise of child labor. When you go into the prostitution industry in this country, let me call it that way, you don't know how many young girls are suffering just because they have to feed and fend for their families. Look at what is happening on our streets as we drive every day. So we need to combat efforts to fight child labor. Ruben is here, smart. He's putting on white and black. But if you could see the shoes down there, and with no belt, I wonder why. But let me leave the sportsman, because I've seen also some coaches dressed like that. See you in the next hour. Have a lovely day. Good morning.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Pick of the day on UBC.